All right, we're now recording. Thanks, everyone. So the Bristol Housing Festival are very, very delighted and pleased to be enabling and facilitating this competition for Goram Homes for the Novers Hill school site. And I'll just do the introductions for the other team members for the competition that are here at the moment. We've got Christiana Makaru, who is the development manager at Goram Homes. She'll give you a wave. And then also Courtney Littlechild, who's a development assistant at Goram Homes as well. Courtney, maybe you can give a little wave. And we're really hoping today to be able to give you the information that you need to be able to enter the competition, and then also, of course, answer all of your questions, as I know many of you have questions. And we will be updating the FAQs in the competition brief folder as well. So anything that gets asked today, we will update that. And as your individual questions come in, we'll be adding those as well. So if you do have further questions after today, you're always welcome to get in touch with me. But please do also check the FAQs document, because we will just be keeping that as up to date as possible. So today what we'll do is we're going to hear from Christiana and Courtney from Goram Homes. They're going to give you an overview of who they are and the specific opportunity of this competition. I'll then just say a few words on the Bristol Housing Festival and why we're so excited to be involved in this competition as well, give you a little bit more information about next steps, and then the majority of the time will be given to the Q&A. So I'll hand over to Christiana and we'll continue from there.
Thanks, Jessie. Thanks everyone for coming, and thank you for showing interest in entering this competition. It is the third one we are launching as Goram Homes to develop one of our sites. And this one is quite special to us, not only because it's sort of a more sensitive site when it comes to its location, but also because we decided to target WECA-based smaller practices and businesses, which is something we really try to prioritize throughout all our projects, and therefore we thought it's a great opportunity to try and do that for this scheme. So I can pass to my colleague Courtney now. She can give a bit of an overview of the brief, quite succinctly, I guess, and then we can take questions, assuming everyone's read the brief.
Thank you. As Christiana said, it will probably be quite succinct if everyone has read the brief, but this is a really exciting opportunity for you as kind of smaller local-based practices within the WECA area to develop the site at Novers Hill. It was an old school site. Site was demolished around 20 years ago, and now we've got the opportunity for around 50 homes to be developed there, with a priority for sustainable, high quality design with adjacent to the ecologically important Western Slopes, as I'm sure you're familiar with now. And yeah, this is kind of a big one for us, where the community are going to be heavily involved in driving this process alongside you guys. So yeah, I think that's it from me.
Maybe actually, sorry, Jessie, I thought maybe we could say sort of how including the community and why. And it is because we found that our model with Red Bay worked quite well. We had a great time sort of working with the community for that competition, and including them, you know, whilst writing the brief, also as part of the judging panel and through co-design workshops, as we're getting to the end of stage 2. So this is something that we are also doing here, especially because of, you know, if most of you are Bristol based, you will know the long history of the Western Slopes and the development around it, and how long people have fought to protect the green space there. So maybe before we start the questions, Courtney can give you an overview of everyone who's on the judging panel, just to explain sort of why they're there and who they are, and give a bit of context as well around that.
Yeah, so the judging panel is comprised of 6 people. So we have 3 members that are essentially representing us at Goram, and that will be Christiana, obviously, who you've met now, another colleague called Elaine, who's more technical, so she can give that kind of insight, a member from our board, Mark Hallett, and then we have the more community-driven members, Councillor Goodman, who is the ward councillor for Philwood, Ian Watt, who is a local youth charity chair, and involved in many of the kind of other community groups, planning groups, etc. And then lastly, we have Julia Victor, who is the founder of Friends of the Western Slopes, who, as Christiana touched on, they've been a group that's been fighting for the protection of the Western Slopes and kind of getting that ecological designation for that space. So yeah, they're very heavily involved in sharing their thoughts on how the site can be complemented by what we're doing. So
Great, thank you so much. So for those of you who weren't here before, I'll introduce myself. I'm Jessie Hayden from the Bristol Housing Festival. And as the Housing Festival, we do consider it a great privilege to be part of these design competitions. Our role is sort of facilitating and enabling the competitions. We'll also be in charge of making sure they're transparent and anonymized correctly so that they're fair. And we're really excited, particularly about the site. We think it's an amazing opportunity to create something that really is ecologically imaginative, that enhances the biodiversity, and really taps into those wider goals of the city. And for us at the Housing Festival, what we're really interested in is changing that narrative on housing and seeing housing delivered that is not only affordable and addresses the incredibly acute housing need in the city, but also takes into consideration the climate and ecological emergencies. And then on top of that, make sure that the local community needs are being discovered and identified and really met. And competitions are such a great way to do this. It's an amazing way to bring in these different community stakeholders, as well as to work well with the developers and anyone else who is relevant for the particular site. And of course, not least yourselves, and really work as a team, because the only way to address these crises together is to really commit to partnership and commit to collaboration and a shared vision for a site. And that's our great hope for this competition, that like for the other competitions we've done previously, that we've managed to get that sense of shared vision where everybody feels heard, where there's obviously the very real need for a viable scheme. Goram Homes obviously needs to consider that as well, but that at the same time, where there are compromises that need to be made, they're done out of that space. So we've all come together, we've all looked at the shared vision, and we've come to this conclusion together and really created something that we can all be proud of. And I know we've all seen there's a lot of negativity around housing, and the press can be negative, and we often focus on what hasn't been done. And what we're really hoping for, and what we really see as the opportunity for this site, is to make it a good news story for Bristol on how development can be done really well. And that's why we get involved with them. That's why we're excited about this competition, and particularly why I'm excited to see so many of you in this room, and to see local architects given the opportunity to create imaginative ideas for this Bristol site. So thank you again for being here. And we are going to move into a Q&A time, but I just wanted to give a little bit of a sense of what's coming next. So this is stage 1. We don't want you to spend hours and hours of your precious time unnecessarily creating technical drawings or going too deep into your idea. This is just a phase for big ideas, imaginative proposals, for you to think quite wide. And we're just looking for 2 to 3 images and 500 words on your idea, 500 words on who you are, that will show us that you can, that you can handle the site, and that you who you are and what you can do. So we want to keep this quite simple. We will then choose up to 5 shortlisted firms for stage 2. Stage 2 will be funded, and then you will be able to develop your ideas further. And in that stage 2, we usually do include a stakeholder engagement element that will probably mean bringing the community in for feedback on some of your ideas, giving you a chance to talk to them about what they're looking for, and then also giving you a chance to respond to those with your final proposal. And then we hope to choose a winner in the summer this year, which is always just wonderful to see all the designs come through. And yeah, so that's kind of how the process will work. I know some of you have asked about site visits. It is a little bit of a sensitive site because there are people there at the moment, there are van dwellers, and so we need to coordinate that. So I did just want to say, please don't go to the site on your own. Speak to us and speak to me, and I will make sure that we coordinate group site visits so that we cause as little disturbance to the community as possible. So I think that is all the information we have for you sort of as a starter. And so it would be lovely to hear what questions you might have. I think the easiest way is if you would put your questions either in the chat box or raise your virtual hand. Raising your virtual hand just brings you to the front, so it's a little bit easier to see than if you raise your actual hand. So I think that will work the best. So I'm going to open it up for questions now. Please feel free to jump in. Pat.
Hi guys, thanks for the invitation to this event, and thanks for outlining the opportunity, which is great, and we've got some experience of this site. But I just wondered a quick question, or 2 related questions really. You talked about the desire to deliver around 50 homes on the site, and I'm wondering where that figure came from. And the related question is how that the mix of houses within that total will help deliver on the community's needs. I can see that there's a reference to following Bristol City Council's policies on and nationally described space standards, all good, but the community's needs might be smaller than nationally described space standards, for example, some tiny homes requirements. I just wondered how those 2 things are being accounted for in the overall figure of 50 homes.
So thank you, Pat, for your question. With regard to the mix, that is generally decided in a conversation between us at Goram and Bristol City Council, and it will take into account the community-specific needs for these 50 homes. Obviously, we can't at this stage kind of provide you with what that may be, but for this point, just what you feel is a good mix will be appropriate for the big idea kind of stage at this point. And the number was informed. We originally had a much larger site with a few hundred homes, and that has been reduced. And then we've done a small viability exercise with a different architect's practice a while ago, who showed us that around 50 or so was what they felt could be on the site. So we kind of gave that to you as a starting point. I can't imagine it will be significantly more, but with the density and the space that we have, that's the conclusion that we've come to. But yeah, it's not set in stone, so to speak.
And to add to that, I guess, you know, initially we did have the range of sort of 50 to 70. And again, that's why I sort of gave the guide of 50, but obviously you guys are the ones that will sort of map it out, and depending on the mix that you propose, that's what you would kind of inform the numbers. Additionally, only delivering national space standard sized homes is part of our objectives as a company, you know, overall. Now, you know, whether through the co-design exercise or conversations with the community, we feel tiny homes are suitable. That's something that we can explore a bit further. But one thing I would ask or guide on really is that the more transparent and sort of explained what your proposals are, the better. So if we can understand through your words and through your sketches and boards why you've decided this is what's being proposed, as long as we can follow sort of a train of thought and understand, why you're proposing what you're proposing, is what's important here. I mean, this is going to be a long process, through the RIBA stages and through planning, submission and determination that will change the mix. So what we're looking for is the right team to work with, but also the right base idea to work with, because as we all know, things through the design process change quite a lot, whether that's because of capacity or needs or guidance from the enabling team on the affordable mix, for example, or cost. It means things will change. So it's just about having that base idea, but also finding the right team to work with that would produce the best result really for the site here.
Thanks, Christiana. I'll just move to Rosie and then to Jess and Joe. Rosie, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you. Yes, Rosie, also from Agile Property and Homes. I was just hoping to understand a little bit more about the sensitivities around the site. So I understand that there are some people living on the site currently in their vans, and I was just hoping to get an idea of what the plan would be for those people who are currently on the site, and is that something that we need to be thinking about in this first stage of the process?
Hi, Rosie. Yeah, that's a great question to do with the van dwellers. So we have an arrangement with the council that has them on the site at the moment, but that is understood from all parties to be a temporary arrangement. And we will be given a time period kind of to provide for them notice to vacate the site, and they'll be housed on a different site. I can't off the top of my head think how long that is, but it's a matter of weeks. So it wouldn't be until much later in the process that we would need to start considering giving them notice and programming that as part of the development. So nothing to be really influencing what you're doing at this stage, I would say.
Thank you. Thank you for that clarification.
Thanks, Jess and Joe.
Hi, hello everyone. I just wondered if you could talk a little bit about, I suppose, how this first stage is going to be judged and what sort of criteria the judging panel might be sort of using to judge our entries.
Great question.
I can pick that up as a part of the judging panel myself. So we will be releasing a set of judging criteria that will be available to everyone. So everyone in this call and everyone entering will know exactly what the formalized judging criteria will be. We haven't sat down as a panel to define these to this date, but that is something that we will be doing and sharing with you. But so far we have judged on different categories of things. So whether the brief was followed, the uniqueness of the base idea, the suitability of the team. Again, this last point would be more of a focus point during the stage 2 process, where we will be able to meet the people from the team and also go through that interview process with them to understand whether it's a team we can work with. But we will be judging the tone of voice of your written statement to understand whether that is a team that we feel we will merge with and we can work with together, as well as the understanding of the brief and the context of the site and the development coming forward. Of course, we'll be judging the quality of the submission boards themselves. So that would be, how well that idea that you're proposing is communicated to us. Having done this twice now already, there is always this range of, you see something and it might be a great concept, but you don't really visualize how it would work in real life. So one thing for me personally in that judging panel would be being able to see it deliverable. I think everyone on the judging panel will have different criteria that they will judge on, and that's exactly why we've put together a diverse panel. So Mark Hallett, who's one of our non-exec directors on our board, for example, has been in development for many, many years. He has great experience as to what's, deliverable, whether whatever we're looking at can actually come forward. So he's part of Igloo Regeneration. Elaine Alford, that Courtney mentioned earlier, she's our technical director and an architect by trade. So that will be judged from sort of a more of technical architectural point of view. I am a chartered planner and have been in development for 5 years. So my aspect would be the more sort of holistic, can we see this going from day one through planning and being built out and people living in it, and how comfortable do we feel communicating this to the community and all the other stakeholders. And of course, the other 3 panelists, which again, as Courtney said, would be the ward councillor, the chair of the Western Slopes, Friends of the Western Slopes, and a member of the community who also leads a youth charity, would be more from the angle of people, already living in the area, knowing what people want and need in the area, knowing whether what is being proposed, whether what's being proposed sort of can merge with what's there. I can't obviously speak for them, but I assume that the point of view they'll be bringing forward would be, well, can we picture the people living in these homes and them fitting into the community as a whole? And I'm sure that, because again, these are people that are existing residents of the community, they would be trying to picture whether what's being proposed can actually mesh well with what's already there, as well as respect the Western Slopes as a green open space. Not get designated, but that is what they would want it to be, and therefore that would be a judgment. So you do get that half and half judgment of the sort of residents and public point of view versus obviously our development point of view, which obviously needs the scheme to be deliverable and viable for us to be able to bring it forward. So that is something that we will be looking at as well.
That's great. Thank you. That's a very thorough answer.
Pat, did you have another question? Or are you still on mute?
Sorry about that. Yeah, coincidentally, I kind of follow up to that very full answer, which is great, which you just talked about deliverability, Christiana, which is fantastic. And I'm just wondering whether there are a number of people in this room, in this meeting, who will be interested in design and delivery. So design for manufacture and delivery. And we'll be hoping, I expect, like us, that we, just because we were maybe part of the design process, we wouldn't be excluded from the delivery element of the process. Can you confirm that will be the case, that we aren't automatically excluding ourselves from tendering for the second part of the process, namely the build element?
That is correct. No one will be excluded just from the sake of entering this. So no. Yeah.
Thank you.
Also, I think this is a good point to mention that you will have seen through the brief that there is a requirement for 10 service plots for We Can Make that need to be part of that brief. So that needs to be very, very clear as part of the submissions, that everyone needs to allow for those service plots to be available and ready to be part of that development. And again, that kind of goes back into the question by Pat. It does show that we're very sort of creative and flexible when it comes to delivery methods. So We Can Make is already part of that mix, and therefore we're just open to suggestions around that. In terms of viability, I know it will be quite high level design wise, what we will be shown in the stage 1 of the competition, but having the understanding that that is something that will need to be viable is quite important for us, and it will be a judging criterion as well.
Great, thank you, Christiana. We have a question from Billy.
Yes, hello. couple of quick questions, if that's okay. Firstly, about the format of the images. Are they PDF, are they JPEG, and also the scale? So are we talking boards, or are we talking individual images for the competition entry?
Billy, hi. That is entirely up to you, whichever way you feel is going to represent better, and we don't have a preference between PDF, JPEG. All the standard formats for an image would be fine.
Fine. And in terms of how they're going to be reviewed, are they going to be printed off and put on the wall, or is this going to be on a screen, just to get a sense of whether an A1 size image is more sensible to, say, a smaller A3 or A4?
No, for this stage of the competition, they will be saved into a folder, and as far as I'm aware, Christiana, you look at them on a screen, don't you, for the judging panel? So we're not going to be printing boards to put up at this stage.
Yeah, we try to be as environmentally conscious as possible, so we do that part for the second stage. But some people might want to so maybe individual judging panels might want to print something at home and have a look, possibly. So we can't exclude the possibility of someone printing it out, but the way that the judging panel will be going through the entries would be on a screen.
Great, thanks for that. And the other question is regarding the site photographs. It's difficult to tell exactly, but from looking at the two in the briefing documents, the two folders of photographs, it seems that they're not from within the actual red line south boundary. It looks like they're to do with a different site, which is behind Bridge View, but it's difficult to tell. I'm just wondering if there's any other photographs you've got of the site that you could circulate.
I think those are the only photographs we had. I will do a double check just to make sure, because I've been to the site now since making that pack, so make sure that they are correct. And maybe even speak to the council and see if they have photographs of the site from when they before they had the vandals on them. Obviously, we're looking to sort these site visit opportunities as well, so hopefully that will be another opportunity for you to be able to see a bit more clearly what is kind of actually there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that would be absolutely fine. That'd be perfect for us. And okay. Is there an understanding of when those would potentially happen, those site visits?
We're speaking now with the coordinator of the band dwellers, and we're hoping possibly next week, but we're thinking sooner rather than later. I'd imagine that kind of information is something that is more useful to you at the beginning of this process than it will be towards the end. So, but we'll keep you informed.
Yeah, certainly that'd be great. Okay. Thanks for
that. I will just say on your first question, probably PDFs are the best way to submit. I'm just thinking in terms of the anonymizing process. If you could submit PDFs, that would be better for me. I can have a JPEG as well, but PDFs are better. And then perhaps for the site visits, if you are particularly interested in a site visit, won't you email me at either admin@bristolhousingfestival.org.uk or at, I know many of you have my email address, jessiehayden@bristol. So we can just make sure that you're on that list. So as soon as they become available, we know who is interested and can email you straight away and get you a slot in that.
That's going to mention the anonymizing, maybe, Jessie. So obviously, if PDF is easier for you, let's just blanket say PDF for everyone. And maybe please don't include your logo everywhere and anywhere on the pages, because that would make it extremely difficult for Jessie and the Housing Festival to anonymize the entries. So, neat logo on the top left or right of the page so it can easily be redacted, and maybe avoid mentioning the company name throughout the text multiple times. Again, that ensures that we can be as fair and transparent as possible. Yeah, avoidance of big watermarks and logos everywhere. That would be appreciated.
Yes, that's a great point, thank you. As Christiana said, it is all anonymized, so as easy as you can make my job for that, I would appreciate it. Martin, would you like to ask your question next?
Yeah, thanks, Jessie. Hi, everyone. It's a really exciting competition and it's clearly a great opportunity for the local area. There's a lot of very useful background information that's been provided already. I just wondered if there's been an ecological survey undertaken and if there's one available. There's the arboricultural report, there's a reptile survey, and the botanical survey. But I just wondered if there's been say a phase 1 ecological survey undertaken. Ecology is clearly a really huge part of the brief. It's a very sensitive site and area. I know from having read a little bit more online in the background that there's say greater horseshoe bats in the Western Slopes. So it would just be very helpful to know if there's say any badgers on site, a situation with bats, birds, if the information is available.
Hi, Martin. Like you said, there are some documents relating to ecology in the supporting documents pack. I don't think that the ecological report was part of that, as you, I guess, have established. I can speak to the council and see if that's something that they are able to share with us. I'll do that in the same conversation I'm going to have. And yeah, and then if we can, then we'll add it to that pack. So maybe just keep an eye out.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you, Courtney. I just have one more question as well, actually, which was touched on by Christiana a little while ago, and that's just about access onto the Western Slopes through the site itself as well. So is this something that's planned to be permitted, encouraged, or what's the situation?
I would say that's up for grabs at the moment. And currently, even though people do access the Western Slopes and, you know, freely walk around, that's not actually allowed or promoted. That is due to the part of the slopes being used with the stables. So there are live horses on there at the moment. So it's not really officially acceptable that people roam around with their dogs near horses that are grazing. So that is a great question, Martin. And I would say it is something that we would love to hear from people as to what they think. So, you know, how are you actually proposing that it's accessible? So if you say, you know, the homes have direct access, that means the stables, you know, might be what do you call it, separated from the rest of the slopes, etc., etc. You know, so part of the proposal can be that idea, although I guess that brings out another clarifications from us that we will be looking at the green space element of the Western Slopes as a separate exercise to this brownfield development of the formerly developed site. So we will be looking at with the council at the open space area and what that can be, because again, there are so many options in terms of its designation. You know, it can be a protected area, which means that actually if it is protected and an ecological area, it wouldn't be primarily for public use. Yes. Are there spaces that are for public use and spaces that aren't? Are there areas within it that can be for exploration and then areas that are more protected? Is there a more designated space for the horses, etc., etc.? So it is a separate conversation that needs to take place that yet hasn't, which gives the opportunity for people to propose whatever they want, maybe. And going back to your previous question, there clearly has been the ecological survey that decided and showcased the importance of the site, and hence we reduced the number of homes from over 300 to 50 to 70. So we will try to find that and share it. Obviously, the surveys that you've already seen are the further surveys that we undertook most recently to understand what's going on. But there had been an original survey that identified areas of ecological importance and then hence excluded those from the developable area.
Sounds great. Thanks very much, Christian.
Just to say, I'm assuming everybody has been on our website and has access to that supporting documents folder. But if you haven't, that's available on the Bristol Housing Festival website under the projects page under Novers Hill. And we are updating that. So when we find the various reports and extra pictures and everything that you've asked for today, we will update that folder. So just wanted to make sure everyone aware there is a folder and that it is being updated. Matt, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, right. Afternoon, everybody. you may have already partly answered it with the last answer in reference to your future work for the wider green space. I just wanted to ask on first glance, it seems to deliver any kind of significant landscape or public open space or ecological habitat on the site and also deliver 50 homes looks quite challenging. So the question was whether when you did your initial piece of work that you mentioned earlier, whether you'd given a parameter to those architects who looked at it to say that you wanted a certain amount of public open space on the site, or do you think that they, or are you looking for a completely innovative solution to try and achieve that that approach? Does that make sense?
It does, and sorry, I'll take that again, just because I was part of that process back then. Clearly, the fact that most of the green space is being protected from residential development, I mean, offers itself to that public open space opportunity. So I would say, again, we're open to that. Clearly, it is going to be a space that will be undeveloped in terms of, again, buildings and residential development. So I don't see why public open space couldn't be part of that. But again, given we do want to keep the residential development as part of the red line, I would say, obviously, you can't just then add a big additional double the size line and say, okay, that's a park next to it, because that might not work with the ecological state or protected state of the development. So the answer is both yes and no. The space area-wise is there, but given that might end up being, for example, part of parks or a designated local green or whatever it is, it might take a different form.
Okay, just to add to that, and did your initial piece of work incorporate a significant amount of public open space within the site?
No.
No. Okay.
So it was primarily to deliver the maximum amount of homes possible suitable for that site.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you.
Great. And we just have one question in the chat. Can we include links to videos as part of the submission? Unfortunately not. It's just a bit difficult to then anonymize those. So just for this stage of the competition, it's just the PDF documents, the images and the written submissions. Kat, would you like to ask your question?
Hi, everyone. Thanks very much for the invite for this competition. Super exciting. Yeah, it kind of just follows on from what we've just been discussing. I suppose, like, from a planning point of view, it's just better understanding if the standard like parking numbers are wanting to be achieved on a site like this, and also what you're hoping to achieve with biodiversity net gain.
Hi, Kat. So yes, standard parking numbers, again, that's something that will be refined as probably once the competition has finished and we're taking it through the stages, having those conversations with consultants. So for now, I would just show the kind of the standard amount. And what was the other question? Parking and
biodiversity.
Biodiversity, yeah. So we aim for 10% minimum biodiversity net gain, with stretch target of 20. It's possibly going to be a bit difficult maybe with this site to hit 20, but yeah, minimum 10. Okay.
Thanks, Courtney. Matt, would you like to ask your question?
Already asked my question, I think. Sorry, I forgot to.
Oh, sorry. You can take your hand off. Thought you had a follow-up. Christiana, we do have another one in the chat that says the council has stated ambition to possibly deliver 100% affordable. Is this as shared ownership or affordable rented? Do you want to just clarify that for everybody?
Yes. So just to be very, very clear, I guess, on the affordable housing. So we always aim for minimum policy compliant affordable housing. So in this case, it would be 30%. And out of that 30%, 75% would be social rent and 25% would be shared ownership. this would be the Section 106 portion of the affordable housing. Should we be able to deliver this as a fully affordable scheme, it means that the 70% additional affordable housing would be additionality, and it wouldn't be part of the Section 106, which leaves the tenure as up for grabs in a way, to be guided by the enabling team, which means that remaining 70% can be anything. But if there is any sort of insight or intelligence I can offer, it would be that it is usually shared ownership that we deliver through the additionality, just because it is a much more viable tenure that we can offer if we're doing 100% affordable, or if we're doing additional units over and above the policy compliant percentage. So if there is the need to specify exactly what it will be, I would say the additionality would be shared ownership or first homes.
Great, thanks very much. Does anyone else have a question before we wrap up? Don't see any more hands up, and there is. Ezra, would you like to ask yours?
My apologies. Let me just get the number. Thank you very much for the invite. I just had a quick question about the overall project timeline, including when you're expecting to go to planning, start on site and finish on site, and kind of what your kind of overall delivery dates are.
Hi, Ezra. Yeah, I think we're not super set on dates beyond the competition at this point. We do have kind of standard goals. I'm not sure if Christiana has more set goals than what my understanding is at this point, or
I would say that would highly depend on how we decide to deliver. So the ability to find a delivery partner would highly dictate that piece. So with our previous competitions, we've run to the end of stage 2 without a partner on board. And then we got a partner on board, and we're proceeding with the full planning application with that partner on board. In this case, once we select the winner, we might try to run the procurement process at the same time, or it might transpire, for example, in what Pat mentioned, or if we look at the we can make element of it, for example, there might be a sort of more direct delivery way forward. So depending on which point in time our delivery partner comes on board, that's when we would be designing and putting together the full planning application, which we are hoping would be before the end of the year in terms of submission dates, if we had to put a rough timeline on it. And then obviously has to go through determination, which, you know, is something that's out of our hands. But as soon as we get hopefully approval of the full planning, we would be aiming to start on site within 6 months of that approval. So it depends on who's delivering it with us is the short answer.
So it's a slightly leading question, which you probably guessed at. Is it that the team from this competition would be kept on? Is that the ambition, or would that depend on the delivery partner? Because it's quite a lot of work to do just up to stage 2. And for me, I'm kind of trying to get a sense of, given there's a lot of people potentially interested in this, whether it makes sense for me to enter. Thank you.
So we are guaranteeing an up to stage 2 appointment. That's what the sort of prize of the competition is. The reason for that is that when there is a delivery partner on board, we are making the decisions as a partnership, so 50-50. Within that partnership, obviously, our input would be that, you know, hopefully, given how the relationship and working experience with the winner goes, we would be then recommending that winner is kept on throughout the process. I don't see why they wouldn't, unless something didn't go as planned, or something wasn't satisfactory from our part, or because it was too expensive, for example. So I'm just giving examples of what possibly would mean that the team wouldn't be kept on. But given that this team would have been selected through this process and presumably backed up by the community as well, and the local councillor and ourselves, that kind of gives you the hint that it is something that we would be hoping to carry on through. But given the decision would be 50-50 in that partnership, we can't guarantee that. And again,
Thanks, Christiana.
Again, we would have to see whether the working relationship is what we hope it is. So even with consultants that we choose outside of competitions, there are always stages in the process. We would never appoint someone all the way through without having that ability to obviously test whether it's working or not.
Thank you. Thanks for your time, Christiana. Cheers.
Thanks, Ezra. Billy, did you have another question?
Yes, sorry, just one more question about professional indemnity insurance. You note that there's a requirement for £5 million professional indemnity insurance cover for stage 2, so taking it through to the pre-app. Presumably there's no requirement for the actual competition entry itself, right?
Hi, Billy. So actually, I think we're meaning to update that FAQ as of a decision that we made very recently. So the PI will be 1 million up until the end of stage 2, and then from at any stage after that, it will be 5, and that's our decision at this point.
Great, that suits us. That's perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Great.
That was just as a result of a few questions that we had last week with smaller firms that were requesting slightly lower. So the Goram Homes has decided that to adjust that, which I think is probably good news for many of you. Is there any other questions? Any other questions before we wrap up? Obviously, this is not your last opportunity to ask a question. I am available to you and will be consulting with the team. So like I said, feel free to email me or use the contact form on the website. Very happy to continue to ask questions, and then we will update the FAQs with all of these and anything else that comes up as well. And we'll be looking for those ecological reports and any additional photographs that we can add. And please do email me if you'd like to be included on a site visit. I will add something to our website as well, a sort of sign up form as soon as we have dates for that. But if you have emailed me, then I can just add you immediately and send you an email to confirm what times we have available. And I think that wraps us up. Unless there are any final questions, raise your hand now or hold your peace until the next 5 minutes anyway, until you email me. Great. Well, thank you so much. It's been really, really good to meet so many of you and to answer your questions. And we're delighted that you're so interested in our competition. And we're really looking forward to seeing all of those imaginative ideas coming through. So thank you for joining us today. And I'm sure we'll be in touch soon.